Okay, so the point of all of these little tiny, I guess you could call them late night infomercials, but basically it's little tiny mini learning sessions, little mini clinics, little mini workshops, is so that the parent can actually learn as much in as little time as possible. And also, if their student athlete or if a trainer or if a coach has the time and wants to actually know what's going on, they can do that in a short period of time. So now I've taken 30 seconds to explain that to you. Let's talk about how parents can help become better at parenting for their student athletes. And so inside of this these are some questions that you need to ask yourself. And believe it or not, if you're asking these questions on a daily basis, the answers will come to you. You'll seek them out, and you'll at least be in a better position to try and help yourself and help the student athlete, whether or not they're your child or whether or not they're somebody that you're training or coaching or whatever. So the first one is, and this isn't really a question, but parents have to be efficient with time usage, okay? You need to display for your student athlete the ability to be efficient with your time, to be effective with your time, to be ecological with your resources. And that means not being wasteful with things and not being wasteful, especially with your time, because the student athlete, especially if they're going to be a student athlete in college, is going to have to be super vigilant on staying on top of a schedule and making sure that they're effective with the use of their time. Being a part of a community, very helpful. It doesn't necessarily have to be just your own town. It could be a travel team. It could be a part of a greater community. If you have contacts bigger than that, you may have, an online community. There's a number of different things that could mean, being a part of a community. So it could be a part of your faith-based community. It could be, sport related. It could be theater related, performance related. It could be something definitely outside. It could be a nonprofit that you're a part of. So that's really important. Accountability. Being able to be accountable for yourself, and this is difficult because there's been a million times on a daily basis that I fail, but I have to be accountable with it and then to try to move forward. It's not easy, but it's easier than later on having to reteach accountability to a student athlete. Time-sensitive goals and needs. Kids they grow up so quick, and the ability to be able to get access to information so quickly online and fulfill that instant gratification is helpful at times, but also at times it allows somebody to push something off until later than necessary, and still be able to accomplish a goal, which is okay if they still accomplish the goal. But if they're not able to manage their time more effectively and do things at the appropriate time and the appropriate place, that's not a good habit to start. Opportunities are time sensitive, so obviously that relates to time sensitive goals and needs as well. Opportunities are time sensitive, meaning if you have an opportunity that you haven't earned and it's in front of you, if you can't capitalize on it because you haven't earned it, like for instance, if you decide to go to an ID camp that you're not at that level of, then you can ruin an opportunity to introduce yourself to coaches and other players and into a situation or a culture because you're not prepared. So make sure you're prepared for the opportunity, whether or not, that you don't have to overdo it. And I don't mean like to overanalyze whether or not you're good enough to be somewhere, but do your homework and make sure that you're finding a place where it's within 7% of your skill set to actually be at. If it's a little bit of a stretch, that's okay, but a big stretch might not be so okay, and it definitely might not be helpful for the development of the student athlete. Injuries. Do not wait for you to get smarter with your training and recovery, meaning there are plenty of great trainers, there are plenty of great coaches, there are plenty of great physical therapists and sports medicine docs, but they are only as good as the information that the student athlete gives them, and they're also only as good as the energy sometimes that they have to kind of invest in a situation. So if they got the wrong information, they base that information or the course of action on that information from the athlete or whatever, then that can lead to, some inappropriate protocol or overdoing a situation or not doing enough in a situation. So sit there and analyze and ask questions and really try to get them as involved as possible, and make sure that you're also as involved as possible with what's going on with your student athlete. They are your student athlete, they're your child, or they're your client, so you're partly involved and also accountable and responsible there too. So make sure that you act in the best interest of the student athlete and their safe and sustainable development in sports and also on into the rest of their life. So here are some frequently asked questions that I ask people all the time, and that sometimes people ask me as well. They're the reasons why people hesitate to commit often to the training that we do, or to other places that are similar to us at a higher level of training, and that is their schedule is too busy to add anything. So you need to be able to understand what's appropriate and when, in order to build yourself up to the level that you feel that you're shooting for. So if you're trying to be a Division I athlete and you don't have time for training and development, well, I have bad news for you. If you're in high school and this is the problem, or you're in college already and that's the problem, and you're not training while you're in college, that's a problem. But if you're not while you're in high school, you better make time for it and figure it out, because you're gonna have to at the next level, when the academics and the athletics are much more strenuous and challenging. Number 2, they're always traveling. I hear people, we're always traveling, we just don't have time. Well, even if you are always traveling, you have time while you're on the road to do things. You can do the best that you can do wherever you are with what you have. So there's always an option for training, for rehab, for you name it. Because you can always ask your therapist, you can always ask your trainer, you can always ask your coach, what can I do here with this in this amount of time? And this is what I had going on, so that you don't overdo it. Number 3, they're always playing and competing. Okay, well, if you're always playing and competing, you need to make sure that you recover enough and that you maintain your strength. So that's going to be nutrition, rest, recovery, and training. And some of it needs to be some mental training too, so that you can possibly, I don't want to say shortcut, but you can augment your on the field experience by understanding more of what you're doing on the field. Because the brain is the pathway to the body, and vice versa. Number 4, they don't have money. You can always budget for things. It's a matter of getting down to the absolute necessities and things. And I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm just saying that when there's a will, there's a way, and you need to make room for what's necessary. And if you get to a big event but you're not prepared, then is it really worth going to? Next, they already have a coach, trainer, a guide, etc. So a lot of times you have a bunch of different people that you're working with, but you don't have any one person that's coordinating all of those things. So this is where we come into play, or as a parent, you need to come into play. You need to make sure all those things are coordinated. Is what the trainer's doing on course with what the therapist is doing, or the coach is doing, or the nutritionist, or the DC, or the sports medicine doc, or the acupuncturist, or there's a number of other people that fit into but are they all together? Is it all integrated? Because if it's not integrated, they might be undoing or sabotaging what the other person's doing. So you need to have a central location where all of that stuff comes to, and it needs to be integrated. You have to have some sort of whether it's a consultant or a liaison or somebody who coordinates all that stuff together, or at least asks the right questions to make sure the student athlete's staying on top of it. The next one, they're too young or too old. I'm not even going to address that, because that's ridiculous. There's no such thing as too young or too old to start paying attention to yourself. There is a little bit of too young, but if you're already playing sports, you need to be, as a parent, aware, or as a trainer, as a coach, aware of what some of the issues and challenges are at that age appropriate level. Next, They aren't sure how serious the athlete is. Okay, well, is there ever going to be a reason or a time when you don't want to be healthier or stronger? So, it's about overall wellness. It's not just about the sport. So if you want to have more fun doing the sport, this is the way to do that. They are injured or sick right now. Well, if you're injured or sick right now, there's a number of different things you can start doing. The mental side of it is huge, and people always push it off because they're too busy physically. If you're not too busy physically because you're injured or you're sick, this is a perfect time to actually start. So as soon as they present that as the challenge and I throw that back at them, they usually go silent. They can't get to the gym, our gym or another gym or whatever gym, but the body is a gym. So you can get to the body, wherever your body is, you can actually do what you need to do with it where you are when you're there. And it doesn't take much time, but it does take some insight and some awareness as to the things you need to work on, and also to the game that you're preparing for, and that the game that your athlete brings to that game, the strengths and weaknesses. Next, we're all set, which is something there's not an excuse, but they'll say, we're all set. And then to that, I always say, well, how did the last ID camp go? How did their last tryout go? How did their last fill in the blank? There's so many different things that people want to cover up or make excuses for. Oh, we didn't start last year because he was in a growth phase, or we didn't play last year because the coach's kid was in front of them, or we didn't play last year because we didn't start last year because they had an injury, or we didn't do great last year because they ran a different offense or a different defense or whatever. All of these excuses are creating a gap in accountability for the athlete, which is a challenge. And unfortunately, even like the best intentions as a parent or a trainer or a coach can really kind of get lost in translation and sabotage your student athlete because they're listening. So if you're making up excuses for them when there's no need to, that's really not a good way to try to help that situation or try to help the student athlete grow. So hopefully this was helpful for you. I try to get these done in less than 15 minutes so that just about any situation, you could even break it up into 3 different parts if you needed to, 4 to 5 minute segments, and you can actually learn from it. So this one was really about how to, or thinking about questions that lead you towards becoming a better parent or trainer or coach for your student athlete, and things to think about. And the biggest thing is accountability and time management, and the appropriateness of the energy and actions that they put into place on a daily basis, and how that plays out over the course of a week. Because what happens every once in a while isn't as much of a big deal as something that happens every while, every day. Those things are the things that we need to watch. So good luck with your student athlete, good luck with your development, and I wish you and your athlete the best.